There we go. Good morning. There's something funny that happens to me every Sunday. I usually get to the church at about 8 a.m. on Sundays to set up for the services. And the first service that happens on Sunday is the Orthros service that starts before liturgy. We start Orthros at 9 a.m. So around 9 a.m. every Sunday, I am in church praying. But then just about 10 minutes later, my phone sends me a push notification that I receive every week, once a week. And it is always around 10 minutes past 9 a.m. I'm sure some of you have guessed by now which push notification it is that I receive every Sunday morning, because I think you all receive the same push notification. It is, of course, my screen time report for the previous week. The report that automatically tells me how many hours a day I spend staring at my phone. And more often than not, that number is usually much, much higher than I would like it to be. I will admit that even today it was pretty high, and I thought, how ironic. So it's something ironic that happens to me. While I'm in church praying, doing what I know I'm supposed to be doing, I get a little report telling me how much time I spent during my week doing what I'm not supposed to be doing. Now, of course, iPhones or smartphones or using iPhones or smartphones is not something bad in and of itself. In fact, these are very useful tools that has made life much easier for all of us. But it is the fascination or the obsession or the reliance that we develop for these things that have made life easier the problem for us. They say too much of any good thing is certainly not a good thing. And this is quite true when it comes to our phones. Even though they make life easier, when we rely too heavily on them or fixate on them, they actually take away all of the things that make life real. They make life easy, but they can take away certain skills and abilities that we naturally develop and need in life otherwise. I'll give you one small example. Let's just talk about the Maps apps, okay? So whether it's Google Maps or Apple Maps or whatever you use, I got my driver's license in 2006. Well before iPhones or GPSs even existed. And I used to drive everywhere, all over my hometown. And then later when I went to college in San Diego from about the years 2008 to 2012, also kind of pre-smartphone days, but right up until they started to become a thing, I would drive all over San Diego without a map or a GPS. And I knew that city like the back of my hand. And even a couple of times when I was feeling adventurous, I would drive up to LA to hang out with friends up there. And I would drive all over the city of Los Angeles without a single map, one of the biggest cities in the country. And so from all my driving, I was pretty savvy with directions, and my friends used to ask me how to get places. But now, in 2024, I use my Google Maps app even to drive to Target during the week. There are only two places in the world that I drive without a Maps app. That would be Elk Grove, California, and the island of Paros. And when I'm driving in those two places, I feel like my old self again, free as a bird. Smartphones have made life easier, but they have done so in a way that takes away part of what makes us people as the way God intended. The man in our gospel passage today also had part of him taken away by something that makes life easier. But of course, for him, it was not an iPhone. The man in our gospel passage today was a rich man. And money, of course, makes life easier. When we have more money, we can buy more things. It says that the rich man was clothed in purple and fine linen and also feasted sumptuously each day. In other words, he was wearing designer clothes and eating at all the Michelin star restaurants. He was living the life that most celebrities live today. But his money and the effect it had on his life changed a part of him that is supposed to be inherent in all of us as God made us. The rich man was so rich that he lost the ability to care about or even see people other than himself. This is evident by the poor man we hear about that lived at the rich man's gate. In other words, the rich man should have been able to see or notice the poor man who was right at his front door every day, but he was so blinded by his riches that he simply left the poor man to suffer. With one fraction of his fortune, the rich man could have changed this poor man's entire life. He could have saved him from his terrible situation. But his money blinded him and took away from him the very important ability that God gave us to care about other people. And of course, as we know, ultimately in the afterlife, the rich man ends up in eternal torment and suffering. And from his place of suffering, he looks up and he finally does see the poor man Lazarus. He finally notices Lazarus. And how does he see Lazarus? Lazarus is in the afterlife as well, and the rich man sees that Lazarus is in paradise. Only after it was too late does the rich man see the thing that would have brought him his salvation as well. Our phones shrink our worlds down to a very small screen. When we spend our day focused on this screen, we will miss the things around us. The abilities we have lost because life has been made easy for us thanks to technology are not to be underestimated. Most monasteries that you visit in Greece have existed for thousands and thousands of years. And yet, they still choose to light their churches with natural candles and windows as opposed to electricity. Yes, of course, it takes more work to light a church, especially during the evening services with natural candles, but there's a beautiful simplicity in lighting a candle until the entire church is lit. The candles are only lit at certain points in the services, and when the monks light them, it has an effect on the human soul that is not possible by flipping a light switch. This week's gospel passage is a reminder to open our eyes before it is too late, to break away from the things that have holds on us to the point where we lose part of what makes us people as created by God. For some, it might be a smartphone. For others, it might be money. Perhaps some of us are obsessing over things like the big election happening this Tuesday. Let us use today as a reminder that God is the most important thing in our lives. There goes a phone right now. The way He created us as people is what we need to hold on to in a world with phones, money, and politics that try to pull us into being something other than who we are, created by God. This week, on Saturday, November 9th, we will celebrate a saint who never lost who he was, despite all the distractions and all the complications he faced in his very difficult life. This Saturday is the feast day of Saint Nectarios, a modern saint who many of us pray to and look up to. So I thought it would be fitting to end today's sermon with a quote from Saint Nectarios himself, which reminds us to focus less on distractions and more on God and our true selves. Saint Nectarios' message to the people living during his time is one that is perhaps even more important today for us to hear. Saint Nectarios said, "We should seek God every single day, but we should seek Him inside our hearts, not outside of them." Amen.